Well, my name is Oscar Hernandez. I'm the leader of two-time Grammy Award-winning Spanish Harlem Orchestra. I'm pianist, composer, arranger, band leader, musical director, and some other names I can't say here, but those are the all the good aspects of what I do.
Well, that sounds like plenty to me. Well, one of the occasions that we're talking to you today is because you'll be performing not this coming, but on Saturday, April 26th at
April 28th.
28th, I'm sorry. So you'll be performing on Saturday, April 28th at the Rialto Center for the Performing Arts with the Larry Harlow Latin Legends Band. And kind of tell us a little bit how you got involved with that particular project in this show.
Well, I've performed at the Rialto Performing Arts Center with my own band, which is Spanish Harlem Orchestra. We've been there at least 2, maybe 3 times, I think, in the past few years. And it's a great venue. It's a great place to perform. And in this case, they had contracted Larry Harlow and the Latin Legends Band. Larry is one of the pioneers of our music. He's been around for, I guess, probably 50 years now, and has been the leader of his own band. And he was one of the pioneers of the Fania era, Fania being the record company, I guess, analogous to like Motown back in the day with R&B and R&B and pop music. Well, Fania was that to Latin music that catapulted from New York City to the rest of the world. And he called me because he was going through a little bit of a health issue, nothing serious, but was prohibited to fly. So me being a pianist and being a person that is very much of his mindset and concept in terms of the music, he asked me to be part of the band that day in his place, and I'm honored and extremely excited. You know, he's got great musicians, great music, and I'm really excited to be part of that evening on April 28th.
He definitely picked the right person. This is a Latin Legends Band because you're definitely a legend. You've had a great career and still doing great stuff with your new release, which we'll talk about shortly. But I kind of wanted to talk about kind of some of the highlights so far, because you've done, for people who may not be familiar with you, you've been involved with some very heavy hitters in the Latin jazz community. And in particular, I know that you work with the Rican Struction album back in 1979, which is now considered a classic Latin jazz album. Kind of tell us about your involvement with that and how kind of that experience.
Well, that was band leader Ray Barretto. And Ray Barretto, again, was one of the pioneers and one of the people that were important part of the musical fabric of, you know, the Latino culture in the 70s, well, 60s. He goes back to the 60s, but more in the 70s with his band and part of the Fania era. Again, he was a Fania all-star, but he was also known as a great band leader who went through different periods of having great bands. And I went through the period of the late 70s to the 80s, recording 6 records with Ray Barretto, Rican Struction being one of them, actually the first one. And that turned out to be a very iconic record. I mean, a recording, it was the measuring stick for a lot of musicians as to the music moving into a new millennium, so to speak. There were high energy arrangements that were very, the vanguard of the time as to what was happening with the creative arranging and creative writing as far as that music is concerned, or our music. So extremely proud to have been part of that, and then subsequently went on to record 5 more records with Ray, all of which I'm proud of because he was known to be a musician with an incredible vision. He was a huge, huge jazz fanatic. Apart from being a Latin music icon, he was also a huge fan of jazz, actually classical music too. For me, it was an education being with Ray, because he was one of the most knowledgeable people I had ever met. And I was like 24 at the time. I had ever met in music. He knew about all kind of music, and as far as jazz, man, he got to play with a lot of the jazz greats back in the day, including Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker, people like that. So it was an honor for me to sit in as his pianist, and later on I became arranger for the band and record 6 records. But Rican Struction was the first, and like I said, it was an incredible recording that set the standard of its day.
Wow. That must have been a tremendous honor to be involved in that. Did you guys have any idea that it would kind of become what it became as you were doing it?
No, nobody had any idea. I didn't know. I know that it was challenging music for me. And as an arranger, I was being challenged and by Ray himself, who was very much, very clear to me on his mission as having a great band, second to none, and the music the arrangements had to be on par with that. So he put the challenge and he laid the gauntlet down, and I said, okay, let's do it. And happy to have been part of everything that he did for those 6 records that I was with him.
So that must have been a heck of a training ground for you, because as you progressed through your career, you later formed the Spanish Harlem Orchestra. Kind of tell us how you kind of started that and what was the inspiration behind it?
Well, I say that Ray Barretto's band, with the Fuerza Gigante, which is Giant Force Band, as they were known, was the precursor for what I'm doing today with Spanish Harlem Orchestra. Spanish Harlem Orchestra was started in the year 2000. It was based on a project by a music producer who wasn't a musician, but he was a music producer, came to me with the idea of doing a record for Warner Brothers at the time of this certain concept. And the record was put on the shelf for a year and a half, then it was subsequently released on a small label, and it got nominated for a Grammy. And then from that point on, it basically gave me my mission, in life, to basically put my own stamp in terms of my mind, in terms of my heart, my passion, to what our music is, especially with respect to the incredible legacy and incredible history that it comes from. So much like, great jazz that's steeped in tradition of people like, Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker, just to name a few, Bud Powell, so many incredible musicians, that were part of the evolution of history. Same thing with Latin music. And I was fortunate in those years to play with so many people. And that's part and parcel of what we do with Spanish Harlem Orchestra. We have our feet planted firmly in the ground with, 2018, but, with a huge obligation to keep that tradition alive and well, and at the same time with an eye towards the future. So I feel honored to now with Spanish Harlem Orchestra be celebrating our 15th year with the new CD that just came out day before yesterday, titled Anniversary. I'm really excited and proud to put that forth into the world. So, and we did it again. The feedback that I've gotten from people across the board saying, "Wow, the CD sounds amazing." And I know already, because I've been doing it with a lot of great people, and I think I know what good music sounds like. So I love the stuff that we do. Comes from my heart, man.
Well, that's the best the music to listen to. The stuff that's coming filled with emotion that is very close to the composer. That has the band itself been something that has it lived up to what you initially thought it would be, or is it kind of still a work in process for you?
Well, you know what? I had no preconceived notions when we started the band. I was basing it on the success of the first record, right, which got nominated for a Grammy. Then I put the band together and we started getting work, and we started traveling. Little by little, we started building a reputation as being really good at what we do. And then the second record won the Grammy. So that cemented, it was, my future was then cemented in terms of what I need to be doing, where I want to be. Like I said, it's developed along the way, but there's a thread that of integrity and of quality, and with a respect to the history that's part of all our records, including this, sixth one that we just released. And I feel very much, obligated and responsible to having that integrity as part of what we do, with Spanish Harlem Orchestra, whether it be a live performance or whether it be, one of our recordings. So I can listen back to all the recordings that we did and a smile comes to my face, because I love them all. I think they're really based on great music. We choose great songs, we choose great arrangers and great arrangements, and we have great musicians. So you can't fail with those, with all those things in place.
Yeah, and speaking of the great music, in particular, those awards that you won were for Best Salsa Album and Best Tropical Latin Album. So congratulations to those and to the release of the new CD as well.
Well, thank you. We're honored to, and the beauty of it is that we've been taking our music all over the world. The band has traveled all over the world and has garnered, critical acclaim wherever we've played, from Carnegie Hall to the Sydney Opera House in Australia, to Russia, to Israel, to all the countries in Europe, not to mention all the great performing arts centers and jazz festivals here as well as Europe. So we're honored to put the music in motion with all our live performances in front of a live audience. And it's pretty cool. For those people who don't know, just check out YouTube. You can see us performing in such places as France, Italy, Russia, wherever you want, and there's really good quality stuff there.
Well, I'm sure we'll all run to do that, and I would definitely be doing that, and I did it a little bit before the interview as well. Is there any place, just kind of one more question on this line, is there any place you'd like to see the band go musically that you guys haven't been able to do as of yet?
Well, let me see. You mean to travel to?
No, necessarily from a musical perspective. Like,
oh,
yeah.
Well, I tell people that, Spanish Harlem Orchestra is not based on being the flavor of the month or the flavor of the year or the flavor of the week. It's music that's timeless, I feel. And the same thing with any good music. I mean, you could go back and listen to any great jazz record and it's timeless. The quality's there, and it's you can't change that. So for me, I think just to keep exposing our music to people who are not aware of it, and exposing it to live audiences, because we get that reaction when we perform live sometimes, people who are seeing us for the first time. And I'm there signing CDs at the end, and the reaction I get is like, wow, I wasn't aware, you guys. It's amazing. The music is incredible. So that's worth its weight in gold for me, the reaction of the people when they see the band live. And I just basically probably to keep expanding our fan base.
Mm-hmm. Now, kind of some of your source for coming up with this great music, your perspective on music comes from your background, I guess, in the South Bronx and being a Puerto Rican native. Kind of tell us what it was like growing up in the South Bronx in your kind of early years, and kind of what were you like as a child? Were you always really into music, or something's kind of like progressed along as you developed?
You know what? I would say probably progressed. I think for me, I say it's divine intervention, because it was put in front of me. I started playing trumpet at the local boys club when I was 12. And I remember the teacher saying, oh, this kid's going to be good. But after about a year and a half, I was having problems with the embouchure for trumpet. And he tells me, why don't you switch the saxophone or the piano? And lo and behold, somebody gave me a piano. We couldn't afford to buy one, because I come from a poor family of 11 children. I'm number 10, and we lived in the South Bronx. So that basically set everything in motion for me to begin a path into music, and initially getting involved with neighborhood musicians and neighborhood bands. And before you know it, I was already playing professionally at 17 and starting to travel at 18 and 19. But, the education, and then I subsequently went to college and got an education. But what really gave me the education was playing with some amazing musicians at an early age. When I was 17, 18, 19, 20, I was playing with musicians who were a lot older and a whole lot better than I was. And that was the education. And arrangers too. As an arranger and as a composer, I was listening to so much music. And the truth is, Dior, during those days, this music was heard from every other window and every other door where I lived. And you couldn't help that. I saw my older brothers and sisters getting ready to go partying and dancing to the music and grooving to the music, as a young kid. And I couldn't help but, catch the bug to how beautiful the music was. And it set everything in motion for me to now, looking back 40 years later, what an incredible time that was for music and for the cultural development of our people through music. So, and I'm part of that. I'm really blessed.
Now, was there ever a point as you were kind of starting that you felt like you said, wow, this is something I think I can do as a career? professionally? Is there a moment that you kind of remember something kind of?
You know, it's funny because I never thought of it consciously that way. And people would say, okay, so you're doing music, great, 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 but what do you really want to be? And I always had that in the back of my mind, you know, like, well, what do I really want to be? But meanwhile, I was working, I was making money, I was traveling, I was already being able to afford my own apartment, I had my own car, even at 18, 19, 20. So I was already making a living. And before you know it, you know, I always had that in the back of my mind. Okay, so what do you really want to do? And then later on at 25, I went to college. I went to City College and got a bachelor's degree in music. But that really paled in comparison to the experience that I got playing with so many incredible musicians, including someone like Ray Barretto at an early age. For me to be the pianist of that band, you know, and the records are there, you know, the proof is in the pudding. Go back and listen to Rican Struction. Go back and listen to Fuerza Gigante, The Rhythm of Life, or any of those records that we did. They're great records. They're great recordings. So, yeah, that was a little bit of how it, you know, happened for me as a young musician. And I haven't worked a day in my life, man.
That's pretty awesome to realize you already had a career as you were trying to figure out which career you were going to be in, right?
Well, I don't know. I kept thinking that question was in the back of my mind. So what do I really want to be? But I was already being what I was going to be. I didn't think of it that way. But, you know, I recently saw where somebody, I think I saw it on Facebook, I saw it on television, where somebody said, if you've lived a life doing what you love, then you've won. And I thought about it and I said, wow, I guess that's me, you know, thinking about it, because I've been doing what I love. And sometimes we don't think about it that way because we're too busy mired in the, you know, the X's and O's of it, you know, how, you know, trying to get through the day, trying to get through the week, trying to get through a performance. And we're not looking at it on that level. But when you really step back and look at the whole picture, yeah, I mean, I've done what I love for over 40 years and doing it better than ever now. That's amazing. At my age, I feel like I'm doing it better than ever with one of the best bands. There's no doubt that Spanish Harlem Orchestra is one of the best bands of any kind of music. Forget about Latin music, of any kind of music that you're going to hear. That's how much that's how strongly I feel about it.
Well, we as an audience, I really appreciate you doing what you do, because you know, for me, I think art is like a part of your soul. It helps you rebuild your humanity. So thank you very much for producing that. And speaking of which, you also producing, besides your new music with Spanish Harlem Orchestra, you also did some a smaller ensemble music with a new CD called The Art of Latin Jazz. Kind of tell us about this CD.
Well, that's me putting on a different hat, so to speak. It's more delving into composition, because the 10 songs on that record are my compositions, all 10 of them. And for me to stretch out more as a pianist and as an instrumentalist, it gave me the opportunity to go, you know, to put my foot in a different direction, so to speak. And I'm really proud. You know, The Art of Latin Jazz has gotten a lot of great reviews and a lot of great reaction, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback. And it affords me the ability and the opportunity to try it, you know, the music on a different level, and also to really make it strictly Latin jazz as opposed to salsa, because Spanish Harlem Orchestra does Latin jazz, but the crux of what we do is salsa. But with my small project, it was all Latin jazz, all instrumental, and I had some great players. It's a quintet. I had some great players that played with me, and I'm proud of that effort as well, Dior.
Now, besides from being, you know, one is a small ensemble versus a big orchestra, kind of what's your approach when musically from a conceptual perspective?
Well, I mean, when you're dealing with a salsa orchestra and you're dealing with five horn players, you know, rhythm section and 3 singers, there's a lot of dynamics that go into that. First of all, I think it starts with the song in terms of, you know, what you want to interpret, and then arranging it for a band that size, it's a whole different dynamic. And then having the band play it, it's a different sensibility than, you know, obviously dealing with 5 musicians where the piano's the focal point and you have key instrumentalists as well. But with the quintet, it was more about composition and improvising more so than Spanish Harlem Orchestra.
Okay. And kind of what was your aim in producing the CD? What did you want to do with it? What was your kind of goal for it?
I think for me, just to basically challenge myself to go in a different direction, to go in a direction that I love, because I'm a jazz fan as well. I mean, the history of jazz is America's music. And sometimes when you combine the best of jazz with the best of Latin, oof, it's like just an amazing, it creates an amazing artistic statement for me. You know, something that way back when Dizzy Gillespie started, because he was a huge Latin music fan with Chano Pozo, and then Machito took the banner up, Tito Puente took the banner up also as well. There's so many musicians, Ray Barretto took the banner up in terms of a lot of Latin jazz that they did. So for me, the precedent was set with people like that and what they did, and so many great Latin jazz artists. Cal Jada is one that comes to mind, you know, as being somebody who was integral to that concept, you know, back in the 60s, the 70s, and 80s when I was, you know, forming myself as a musician.
Well, it sounds very intriguing, the art of Latin jazz. So if you had to kind of boil it down to one or two things that you have to have in order to make a great Latin jazz album, what would those be?
Well, I think that, you know, it all starts with the composition. So, because if you're going to record something, the statement that you're going to say, so it's like a great book. It all comes down to what is it you want to say? Do you have something that's of value in terms of what you're trying to say? So it starts with the composition, and then you know, it starts with then it goes from there to the great players. You know, surrounding yourself by great players and people who are aware of the team concept, because you're not doing a solo record, so you're doing with other musicians, and the team aspect of what I do is very important. Also with Spanish Harlem Orchestra, you know, I got to get people who understand our agenda, who are clear on the mission, and who are there supporting each other, you know, to win the game, so to speak.
Well, I'm sure you guys have won for sure. And again, I'd like to thank you for taking your time and with me today, and sharing your story and your music. And for those who are interested in kind of checking out your music, how can they do so? And I know we also have a show coming up, like you said, April the 28th on a Saturday at the Rialto. So kind of tell us about those and how people can either purchase tickets or check out your music.
Well, certainly, I would go to the Rialto Theater in Atlanta. You know, their website, I don't have it at hand, but maybe you can, you know, put that on the screen. Certainly, it's a great place to you know, to go see music live. But as far as they can find out about my music, you can go to SpanishHarlemOrchestra.com or OscarHernandezMusic.com. I have two websites, and they're both geared toward you know, explaining my music, the concept of what I do, and I'm really proud of both. So if you get a chance, you know, go out there and purchase the music and support. I strongly urge you, because we need the support. You know, as much as there is great music to be heard, if you know, that music doesn't get the support of the people and is not heard, then, you know, it's like a tree falling in a forest, you know, where, you know, nobody's there to hear it, you know, it doesn't matter, right? So we urge people to always support live music, to support the arts, and support, you know, hey, music saved my life. Like I said, I'll say that, you know, totally honestly from the heart. I came from poor beginnings, you know, in the South Bronx, you know, and a lot of people where I come from weren't as fortunate as I, you know. Now I've traveled all over the world. I've met some amazing people. I've worked with some amazing people. I've recorded with some amazing people, shared the stage with some amazing people. So I'm totally blessed coming from where I come from. And it's the power of music. So I think we all need to support the arts. But I thank you, my brother. Thank you for sharing my story and educating people, you know, because that's important that people learn about culture and music and arts, and it's people like you that are helping making it happen, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it, and thank you as well. You know, we live to, you know, support what you guys are doing, and without what you guys doing, you know, I have nothing to do. So thank you very much. I appreciate the art. Again, we're here with Oscar Hernandez. and he's going to be performing on Saturday, April the 28th, with the Larry Harlow Latin Jazz Latin Legends Orchestra. So make sure you go check that out. We appreciate it. Thank you again. We'll see you next time.
Peace and blessings.